Can you start a podcast with me, please? I need something to do.
Pastrnak sent it out in front of Malkin to save. They score! Elias Lindholm looks to the heavens.
Here's a chance. Potter right in, and goalie scores. Oh my, what a move by the rookie.
2-on-1. Pastrnak moving in with Marchand. Get it to it. Score!
The zone. Coyle dances in. Backhand score!
Lindholm right wing corner. Pastrnak is there. He scores! David Pastrnak wins it for Boston.
Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of Bruins Tape to Tape. I'm your host today, Caroline with a K, and I am excited to welcome in my fantastic co-host, Maria from Watertown. Hey, Maria.
Hello. Hi, Caroline. What's happening today?
Oh, just enjoying the dog days of summer. It's almost over, which is just shocking to me.
I know. Yeah. We've had great weather, but it's going a little too quickly. Hence why we have gathered to talk about our Boston Bruins.
Yes. We're continuing our summer series on players, and we're doing a player profile on recently acquired winger JJ Peterka. As a little bit of a background in how he came to the Boston Bruins, the 24-year-old was actually part of a late trade deal right around the draft, which is funny because the Utah Mammoth actually traded for him a year prior, and they spent 1 year with him and decided to move on. And so the Boston Bruins sent its 2026 first round pick in the draft, so number 23, and a 2028 first round pick that belonged to the Florida Panthers, which the Bruins did acquire in the Brad Marchand trade back in 2025. The Florida pick is top 10 protected. Thinking about that, if Peterka does become a bit of a something, maybe we didn't give Brad away for just a
nothing. It's certainly better than the value of that draft pick.
Yes.
And I might go off in a little bit of a tangent here, but
it's a bird in hand.
I will take a proven NHL player over the unknown of a draft pick that's not your number one, because those guys are going to take forever.
Yeah.
There's too much unknown there. And I've heard enough experts say this about the hell with the draft picks. If you can trade a draft pick, again, unless you're not going to give away Connor Bedard, James Higgins, that's okay. I'm removing those players from the equation, folks.
Yes.
But if you can take and trade a pick for a known commodity, I'm doing that every day, all day. And this kid's only 24. Right?
Yeah. Before we dive into who this guy is, I just want to say, for the record, when it looked like Victor Arvidsson was not coming back, and this was prior to the July 1 free agency start, I definitely made a comment and saying, if they're not signing Victor Arvidsson, this must mean they are looking for somebody who can fill a similar role with a similar style of play, who is probably younger. And sure enough, in comes JJ Peterka. Now, I am very excited about this particular player, Maria. I am expecting a full-on golden retriever out there with his speed and excitement to play.
I'm expecting a pit bull.
He was drafted in 2020. He was number 34 overall by Buffalo, who shockingly, under the leadership, quote unquote, of Kevin Adams, did have great success in drafting and finding excellent talent. I will give them that. But once again, like many players who spent their beginning years in Buffalo, never got traction, but likely because of all of those things, he ended up being traded to Utah. Now, this is a guy, as Elite Prospects said, has an unrelenting motor.
I was hoping you would get to that.
He is hard on every puck. He is eager and willing to fight, and he has a disruptive streak in him. He's been called a real pain in the ass.
And I'm sure Cam Neely does have his fingerprints on this team, because we've said it once, we've said it twice. He has come out and said that he wants this Bruins team basically to be a nightmare to play against. Now,
Yes.
it hasn't fully translated as yet. We're starting to see the assembly of that. Now, one might ask the question, which is a logical question to ask, why would the Utah Mammoth trade this kid?
Sure.
Why would they trade him? So some of the speculation is that his performance in Utah didn't match or didn't meet the expectations a top 6 contract on the team. And management wanted to clear space for incoming young players.
Yes.
So,
and I think on the surface, I think that is a very valid point to make.
And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying one would ask a question, right?
No.
Because you've got a young kid who went relatively high in the draft, projected in the manner that you just spoke about in the 2020 NHL draft guide, and quite hasn't met those standards yet. But again, it could be, and we've talked about this with other players, right? The system, the structure, the role, the assemblance of the team as a whole in another organization may not be suited to what you're expected to do as a top player prospect.
And keep in mind, he started his NHL career on those particular teams. And unless you are some superhuman like a Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, Macklin Celebrini, you're going to need a little time to cook and grow.
And does Utah have a David Pastrnak on their team?
They have a higher degree of across-the-board talent than Buffalo certainly has had. But my biggest takeaway is that in spite of let's call it a statistically depressed season last year in Utah, he did have 2 excellent seasons in Buffalo. And let me just say, a statistically depressed season for JJ Peterka last year, he still scored 25 goals, 47 points with a +6 finish and a 5.2 points share. Okay? So that's nothing to poo-poo about.
I really like the 25 goals.
Yes. He's a dynamic, controlled zone entry winger who can turn defensive structure into immediate offense. He's the type of player whose success won't actually primarily be measured by whether he scores 25, 35, 45 goals. It's going to be whether he becomes the player who can consistently turn the Bruins' neutral zone stops into controlled entries and rush chances. And what is the style of play that we have talked about that Marco Sturm is pushing his players to execute on? Stopping things in the neutral zone, not with a trap. Remember, we love trap's cousin, the 1-2-2, which is forcing other teams to make mistakes. And then when they make those mistakes, pouncing on that puck, transitioning and rushing in. JJ Peterka, when I say I expect a golden retriever style of play, he might not be the one who necessarily forces the error by the opposing team, but the second he sees it, because of his speed, his hockey IQ, and his incredible shooting mentality, he's going to see it like a dog who sees a Frisbee, and he's like, let's go. And that is what gets me excited about seeing a player like him, because we now have him also for a number of seasons. He's young. He's going to learn a ton. And even though his ability to contribute on the Mammoth team was not as great as his ability to contribute on the Buffalo team, remember, the Buffalo team was more reliant on him to do things as opposed to Utah. Across the board, his shooting percentage remained extremely high and consistent. So his ability to contribute to chances suggests that if he's just in an environment where that is the style of play, he will continue to score those goals. He will continue to make those plays. And that is very exciting for me. We need speed. We need someone who's got that get up and go and will not slow down.
And we need that balance in scoring. That was a perpetual and somewhat, it became more so towards the end of the season when it came down to do or die, but the secondary scoring became extremely problematic for the Bruins last season. I think it's a little too early to project where Peterka is going to be, what line, but I would venture to guess that.
I'm saying too.
Yeah, that's what I would say too.
And to your point, that lack of balanced scoring, the lack of defined roles, specific jobs, we've said before, really successful teams have all of their players with their very specific job, right? And you've got David Pastrnak, winger, elite offensive creator. That is his job, okay? Player extraordinaire. Geeky, excellent finisher. We saw that even when he was going through his rough patches. He was there. He was doing what he was supposed to be doing. It just, the hockey gods weren't allowing those pucks in. It's not like he just stopped playing. Casey Middlestat, he's an excellent possession playmaking center. Fraser Minton, very responsible two-way center. He's, as we have talked about him, he's not the next David Krejci, but he's bringing that kind of energy and approach to his game. And so with the departure of Arvidsson, he was the transition winger, but he was entering his mid-30s. And here we have a 24-year-old
who's locked up until he's 28. He becomes a UFA.
Yes.
At the age of 28. What year is that? 2030.
Because of this, Boston didn't have any other consistent winger who could just explode through that neutral zone with the puck. And that is quite literally Peterka's calling card. This is what he is known for. And I think that this was a very smart acquisition.
And that's the part of Arvidsson's game that I know I came to really respect and enjoy and admire, because he was relentless. And as disappointing as it was when he moved on, I'm not quite sure I still understand why we couldn't match what he got, other than you wanted to move on to the younger model.
But Sturm really wants to have a very nimble Boston Bruins team. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, they need to be literally faster. You can still be quite nimble and fast without having that literal speed, but it doesn't hurt to have that, especially in someone who has the ability to just pick up on plays and go. His style does not lend itself to a more steady, measured style of play. He's not going to be the best at creating offense or generating offense. And that's okay. That doesn't have to be his job. We have solid centers who can do that. We have David Pastrnak who could get blood out of a stone. His job is going to be very specific. And with his youth and his speed and his fearlessness, I think we are going to see Boston get better and better at the rush and at that transition game. Last year, one of the biggest improvements that we saw was their commitment to staying above the puck and limiting those odd man rushes. And that comes from Sturm's plan, his approach. It's almost like I really hope that Sturm isn't a transition coach, because personally, I really enjoy his style that he wants to have the players do, because it's exciting, right? How many times in the last 15 years have we seen, oh my God, the world's most boring hockey out of this team?
Right.
And what he is trying to get out of his players is a very exciting brand of hockey. And so if you bring in a kid like this, and then you've got someone who also has that shoot first mentality and will take advantage of those opportunities, I think we will start to see some of that secondary scoring. Dear God, we have to see that. And he's young enough that he's still developing. He can learn how to become a more well-rounded player as well. Sturm is not afraid to sit and scratch players. It doesn't matter who you are. We've seen him do that. We saw him do that with Mason Lohrei when he cracked the bed. And so he's going to have to learn some new skills. If Peterka can buy in, because how many times last year did we hear Sturm talk about, well, we got to make sure people are buying in. As long as he buys in into the concepts of the reload, the puck support, back pressure, neutral zone transitioning, and he's following through, then Sturm will reward him with more and more responsibility.
And there's that homeland connection. Then there is the Kevin Adams connection. Kevin Adams has recently been brought on by the Bruins organization as a quote unquote special assistant to Don Sweeney. I don't know if that means this guy could be coming in to take your job, Donnie, if things don't work out good. But
Dear God,
um,
no.
but Kevin had familiarity with
Yes.
Peterka in Buffalo. He was part of that group that drafted him.
Sure.
Buffalo. So,
And there's another assistant coach who also coached Peterka in Salzburg in Germany. So he's got a lot of connections to Boston. What are you going to be looking for with a player like this? What are your expectations? Keeping in mind, he's all of 24 years old. So how much of his decision making can we truly rely on to be excellent all the time?
well,
To be determined.
I think we have to have some patience.
Yep.
Because as we saw from the introduction of Marco's, the whole new defensive structure, a lot of players struggled
Yes.
with
It's very different.
getting on board with that. So I think we have to temper our expectations, at least for the start of the season. I don't know that this kid is going to come in guns a-blazing and just start scoring an abundance of goals, because we all know that as a member of the Boston Bruins and as a part of the Bruins roster, there is an expectation that you have some degree of defensive responsibility from top to bottom. Forwards, defensemen, goalies. Okay. What I think might be a little bit of a disservice to this kiddo is the fact that he's coming in at a pretty big salary. He's coming in at a pretty big salary.
7.7 AAV.
7 point, which is a tick higher than Elias Lindholm. And honestly, bringing in this kid makes that Elias contract look even worse than it already is.
No.
This kid's 24. You're paying a 31-year-old 7.75 who can't stay healthy, who can't perform, who can't produce. And I've said it once, I'm going to say it again. He's damaged goods. He's got a chronic back issue, in my view, that is never going to enable him, I think, to fully meet the standard of performance that we thought we were going to get from this guy. So that's a conversation for a different day. So I'm curious to see how much of a leash this kid will get, right? Maybe he'll get a little bit more leash than Mason Lohrei did, because Mason Lohrei has been part of this system.
Oh, yeah.
For a longer period of time. But I think we have to expect some growing pains, a little bit of growing pain. And we're going to see growing pains too with James Hagan.
Yeah. Boston is about to get even younger. 2 or 3 seasons ago, Boston was second oldest in the league. I mean, it's been Pittsburgh for a while because it's a retirement home down there. Last year, they got younger, and I think they're about to get a lot younger too. And so I think the next 2 seasons are going to be a time full of transition, because 2 things are happening at once. I believe we are going into phase 2 of that rebuild, because yes, they exceeded expectations in that first year, but they're not done. They still have to find the right personnel. And that's something that every team is always doing. They're always tweaking personnel. We're going to be talking about the forwards in a couple of weeks and the defensemen in terms of who's got what roles on this team, what roles are still vacant, because we've all seen what happens when you ask a player, forward or defense, to take on a role that is not a natural fit. It doesn't go well for anybody. And so I'm really hoping that what I was able to find on JJ Peterka and his mentality in the game, how he approaches the game, how he executes the game, that will transition beautifully with someone like David Pastrnak, where I could see them being on the power play together. Can you imagine somebody like Victor Arvidsson, but potentially faster, getting out there, getting the puck, getting it up to Pasta, and actually finally being somebody who can play with and support him? That would be truly amazing. Truly amazing. Is he our white whale? I don't know.
I can give the Bruins management credit for understanding that they needed to get a bit faster, right? They needed to get faster. They need to try and solve their secondary scoring problem, right? They needed to be more consistent because, again, we fell into a trap last season, late in the season, once again, of solely relying on one line. No matter how Marco mixed them all up, it was still one line that was providing an abundance of scoring. I still think there are, to me, questions, and we'll get into this in a future episode. We still need to figure out how to get more offensive production from our back end, too.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that they're understanding that they need to get a little younger. It's in younger and more experienced with more proven track record type players without exclusively relying on the draft, because they want this retool to be a bit quicker. I also like the fact that they're not building a team now specifically to beat another team, one team in your own division or conference, because it blows up in your face. And every other team around you has improved as well. My only concern is the cap hit and the amount of money, because if he doesn't improve on his numbers and his stats, if that doesn't bear out, that's not going to look like a great contract down the road.
Yeah. No, it's definitely expensive. So the other piece of this transition period that Boston is then moving into, in addition to continuing the growth and development of the team as a whole into Marco's vision of how to play the game that he sees in his mind, is the fact that we are probably also just a couple years away from having a significantly younger team. If you've listened to our episode on some of these prospects, we've got probably at least 3 young men who are going into likely their final NCAA seasons. And I fully would expect to see those guys end up in Providence shortly after their season ends, and then really genuinely entering the pipeline possibly as soon as next season, 2 seasons. We're talking about Dean Letourneau, Will Zellers, Chris Pelosi, like a bunch of these guys. Plus, you've got James Hagen's waiting in the wings and a couple of other guys who have already been doing their time in the AHL. And so what I like about bringing in someone like Peterka is he's also kind of that middleman between, in terms of his age and his years of experience already in the NHL, being in a place where he's going to be playing with, dare I say it at this point, Pasta is about to be he's a veteran player he's 30 years old, and someone like him.
He's designated as a leader on this team, right?
Right. We've got this kid who already has NHL experience, so he already knows what is going on. He doesn't have to learn that aspect of playing in the NHL, and so he can learn and grow and develop in that regard by playing with guys like David Pastrnak or Pavel Zacha or any of these other line mates that he's going to have, because they've all been playing for longer than him. And then he will be able to serve as that mentor to these really young guys who are coming in. I can see his hiring, for lack of a better phrase, as very intentional in trying to build the next iteration of the Bruins, because we've said goodbye to that most recent golden age of Boston, and they're now trying to build up this next age of the Bruins, trying to avoid creating those gigantic gaps.
The threshold should be high for these younger players. And it's not going to translate right away. It may not even translate with JJ Peterka until the midway point of this season, right? In terms of, okay, what are we truly going to get from this player? What can we truly expect from this player? But I think I don't think it's unrealistic based on the age, what we've heard about, what has been projected, to set a relatively high threshold.
When you're watching this team in the fall, keep an eye out on this player, see what he's doing really well. If you see him coming up the boards, watch how he enters the zone. Is it controlled? Can he transition quickly? When that puck gets loose in that neutral zone, is he aggressively grabbing it and taking it? Is he going and following whoever has the puck quickly? Is he getting into position and taking advantage of that transition and the rush? He may not necessarily be executing on it perfectly. He's got to learn how to play with these new teammates, right? That can take a little while. He's got to learn this new system. But if that is truly his calling card, as we have been led to believe based on his stats, scouting reports, you're going to see that aspect, that element immediately, because that's like his personality. That doesn't change. That's what I'm going to be keeping an eye on. I'm going to watch him, see who he gets put on with. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him maybe bounce in the middle a little bit, like second or third, as he gets familiar. But I am certainly, based on what I've seen, under the impression that they're hiring this guy specifically to take Arvidsson's spot on that second line. And even if it wasn't to take Arvidsson's spot, which happened to be on the second line, what I've read about him and what I've seen of this kid, to me already, I would be like, that I want to see him on the second line. I'm hiring you because you're $7 million. You do this, that's a second line.
Right. I would ask the fan base to maybe give him a little time to transition. And I think there's going to be a lot of maneuvering as it relates to lines coming up this season.
Yeah.
Because when you look at currently what the Bruins website has listed as its roster, holy moly. Yeah, holy moly. So it's like, where are all these guys going to eventually? You can't keep them all on the active roster.
Nope.
You can't keep them all on the active roster. But I like the fact that there's going to be actual competition.
Yes.
Right? You want a spot on opening day? You better freaking earn it.
And a good variety to choose from. I get the sense, certainly, that based on how Sturm wants to see his team play, he knows what the jobs have to be. He knows what the job openings are. And he's going to try and find the players who can be the most successful in that. And because there's a lot of guys to choose from, hopefully that means the right guys, the best guys, get those spots.
Yep.
Because this Atlantic Division, we've said it time and time again, the Atlantic Division is the most competitive of all of the divisions, and it's only getting more and more insane. I've seen the roster for the Panthers and what the Habs are doing, and I'm shaking in my boots a little bit.
They're not the only ones, right? They're not the only ones.
Exactly. People are not messing around. But final thoughts, opinions, questions, concerns that you may have about Peterka?
Well, I don't know much about him. You've done a great job filling us in, as always, with your research and your statistics, because we don't watch this Utah team, right? So we're kind of getting an unknown. I like what I've heard and read thus far. I like that he is young. I'm just concerned about the contract and how that is going to ultimately play out, because you do have other areas of need here coming up. You still need a proven right shot defenseman. They don't grow on trees, but with what you have left in your projected cap space, you're not going to get them. We hope for the best.
Brace for the worst. We've already seen the worst.
Yeah, no, we've lived it, right? We can only go up. We can only go up. But looking down at this roster right now, does it gives me Stanley Cup playoff vibes? Yeah, not quite yet, but
but I'm not mad, so it's okay. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm very open-minded and feeling positive.
Yeah, we feel like that now.
Anyways, make sure you like and subscribe for more content, and be sure to leave a rating and review to help other Bruins fans find us. You can support the podcast by joining our Patreon or following us on our socials at Tape to Tape MK and on Substack at tapetotapemk.substack.com. Final thoughts.
Go Bees.
And as always, go Bees!